Nicole Johnson here from the Baby Sleep site, and today I have some tips for early waking babies and toddlers. Before we get to that, please like and subscribe this video so I can keep doing these great videos for you. I love giving you guys sleep tips for your babies and toddlers. So, okay, let's get into it. So, the number one reason for babies or toddlers to wake up too early in the morning is because they're overtired at bedtime. And you might have heard this before, you know, early bedtimes are better for your babies and toddlers. Sleep begets sleep, those types of things, and it's true. So what happens is our bodies release hormones to fight fatigue, and what happens is we get a dose of cortisol that will kind of keep us up, give us our second wind. Well, the problem with that is if we go to bed overtired, then we kind of have more restless sleep. Babies and toddlers are more likely to wake up in the middle of the night, and they are more likely to wake up too early in the morning. That 4 to 6 a.m. on average time frame is the lightest sleep of the night, and so it's really hard to stay asleep anyway. So if you've already overtired and kind of not sleeping well, then it's even more difficult to go back to sleep. Now, one of the best things you can do in a case like that is actually to stay in bed and try to go back to sleep. For me, when this happens to me, because actually, after I had a baby, I started realizing that it happened to me too, and I could get overtired, and if I don't get a nap in on the weekend or something like that, I could get into this vicious cycle of not getting enough sleep. So I thought that was really fascinating. When I'm trying to go to sleep, if I wake up too early in the morning and I'm trying to go back to sleep, it might take a while. Sometimes it takes even up to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, but then once you fall back to sleep, you get one more sleep cycle in, and then that usually breaks the cycle of overtiredness. So similarly with babies and toddlers, you want to try to keep them in bed until at least the time to start the day. They don't always go back to sleep, but the number one thing you need to keep in mind is that light stimulating our eyes is what signals our brain to wake or sleep. So if they are awake, let's say at 5 a.m., you want to signal their brain that they should be sleeping, so you want to keep them in bed, keep the lights dark, that kind of thing. Even if they don't go back to sleep, what we're hoping is over a series of a few days that they'll be able to change their internal clock and go back to sleep or stay asleep in that hour. So that's the number one reason. So a schedule is very important for your baby or toddler to make sure that they're getting adequate sleep during the day, good naps, and that bedtime isn't too late. Now, how late is a too late bedtime? Well, some children are very sensitive to being overtired. My first son was very sensitive, my second son less so. Sometimes 15 to 20 minutes can make a huge difference in whether they stay asleep, whether they have night wakings. Sometimes my younger son would have night terrors if he was too overtired at bedtime. It usually had to be something like he skipped a whole nap or something like that. So keeping bedtime at adequate, look at those wake windows. So below this video, I will put a link to my wake windows post so that you can kind of check your baby's age and see what their wake windows should be, because they range depending on age and just development. Everybody has their own kind of developmental clock, if you will. So that's the main reason for early waking, but there are other reasons. So sometimes if you night wean too early, that can cause some early waking. So for example, let's say your baby can go 10 hours without eating, and now, you know, they ate at 7 p.m. and now it's 5 a.m. and now they're hungry. Now, the problem with that sometimes is, let's say they dropped their 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. feeding, and on paper this sounds great, but unfortunately what happens is they wake up at their max, which is 10 hours, and then they can't go back to sleep. Well, sometimes with the feeding, they can go back to sleep, but since you're trying to night wean and get to the point where they're sleeping through the night, sometimes they just have a lot of difficulty there. So some people do a dream feed, which I can also put a link below the video about dream feeding. Some people will feed them and put them back into bed. Of course, if you're trying to get them to sleep through the night, that's not your number one goal, but they're getting closer, so maybe just a few more weeks and they can do it. Now, sometimes it's just a matter of getting used to it, so you might wait a few days. Maybe they're up from 5 to 6, you give them a feeding and get up for the day, and then over time they'll get more and more used to going 11 hours instead of 10 hours. So hunger is another issue. In older toddlers, sometimes that hunger is because, let's say, sometimes I'll be working with a family and they're giving dinner at 4 p.m. or something like that. The child might get a little snack or something before bed, but that's very early, and so sometimes that will cause hunger in the early morning as well. You want everything in sync from their schedule. So, dinner might be 5:30 or 6 p.m. instead of 4 p.m., for example. Especially as they get older, milk becomes more of a beverage with their meals rather than a meal itself. So you really want to make sure the meal times are adequately spaced in relation to bedtime. So I think that's it for today for these early waking tips. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'm happy to answer. Please like and subscribe this video again, and have a great day.